Hi, I'm Bill Corcoran Jr., and I'm your host for the On the Stacks podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Bill Jones, President and CEO of the United Way of Wyoming Valley. What's up, podcast, episode 42. Welcome to the On the Stacks podcast. Bill, how are you?
I am great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is exciting. So you brought some cool props with you today. You brought Dolly Parton with you. Cardboard cutout, of course, but nonetheless. So before we talk about the United Way and your mission and what you guys do in the community, why don't you tell me a little bit about you and your background and how you got to where you are today?
Well, that's not a long story.
It's a loaded question.
Right. So I started. I'm just a Wyoming Valley guy. I grew up in Lake Lehman. I went to Misericordia because it was close to home and affordable at the time, and spent 15 years in banking. I thought I would be a rich banker, and over the course of time, I think the Sisters of Mercy at Misericordia got to me. And after 15 years of being in banking, I left banking to become the Chief Operating Officer for Volunteers of America, which is a statewide affiliate of a national nonprofit organization. And I loved our work for 12 years and what we were doing in Wyoming Valley and in the greater Wilkes-Barre area. We were growing like crazy. And then the position of President and CEO at the United Way had opened up. And for me, this has always been home. And so the opportunity to move from a statewide platform to being the President and CEO of a huge, important, institutional organization like the United Way in the community that I will always call home, appealed to me. I applied for the position. I was one of 84 people who applied, and I just so happened to be the person selected. So here I am, 8.5 years later, trying to serve our community that I just love.
That's awesome. So how did you go from banking to the nonprofit world? What was the change?
When I started at First Eastern Bank in 1985, I was in branch banking and then mortgages, and then we had some turnover or change at the bank at the leadership, and they wanted to create a full-time position in an area called community reinvestment, and they wanted to make sure that the bank was doing its job, meeting the compliance mandates and serving the community. I was the selection by the leadership of the bank at the time. And 6 months later, we merged we were acquired. First Eastern was acquired by PNC Bank. And my career actually took off in this community development area. And I was responsible for community development work here in Northeast PA down to the Lehigh Valley, Central PA, Erie PA, the state of Delaware. Those folks reported to me. But the further I moved up in banking, the further I got away from the community. And so I really missed that work. And I just decided that I wanted to leave banking. And I loved the work that I did at the bank, but I really wanted my life to be about people in need, not about shareholders. And I left all my stock at the bank, so I'm glad that there are people really interested in making sure the bank does well and my stock does well. But I wanted my life to be about people in need. So I went from banking to this community area of banking out to the community. And it went from a 12-year stint at Volunteers of America now to, 8.5 years later at the United Way.
Really cool.
Yeah.
Cool story. So the United Way of Wyoming Valley annual campaign is wrapping up soon.
Yep.
And I'd like to talk a little bit about the campaign, given all things happening with COVID. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit about the United Way and what you guys do.
Well, you know what? The United Way is truly a force for good in all of the communities it serves. And the work that we're doing here locally, I'm really, really proud to be part of. Many people would recognize the United Way from years and years and years ago, decades ago. We were kind of like the community chest of a community where the businesses didn't want to be handing out, charitable dollars to everybody. They decided that they wanted to fund one organization and have that one organization fund all of the nonprofits in the community. And that's really the genesis of what the United Way how it got started. And in many communities, we were the community chest of that community. Well, we outgrew that model as more and more nonprofits came, into existence. The United Way outgrew that. We started to become more selective in those organizations that we wanted to help and help those that, people most in need, and did that for a very long time. And then kind of outgrew that model because there became other ways for individuals to support charity. They didn't have to go through the United Way to support charity. They could support charity directly and charitable causes. So the United Way has, over the course of time, had to remake itself. And when I came to the United Way, across the country, there was this movement to go from this fundraising conduit model, donor gives to the United Way, and the United Way gives it out to the community, to a organization that is much more impactful. And so when I came to the United Way, we said, where could our dollars have the biggest impact? We engaged the Institute for Public Policy and Economic Development to do a study for us on what are the most pressing needs of the community. And to make a long story short, we landed, things in our community aren't going well for us. The things that aren't going well because of the growth of poverty throughout Wyoming Valley. Now, poverty is a really big topic. It affects people of all ages, from cradle to grave, and young and old and all of that. So we said, what can we do? Where could we have the most impact with our donor dollars? And we decided to focus on the issues of childhood poverty. And most people probably don't realize that in the 2000 census, the poverty rate among children in Wyoming Valley was 14.7%. In 2012, when we did this study with the Institute, the poverty rate had grown from 14.7 to 29.6, meaning more than, just about 1 out of every 3 kids in our community growing up in poverty. And if we're not addressing that, what does that say for the future of our community? So we changed our model. The agencies that we were funding, we said we needed to do something different, and we got them all aligned in what we were funding them to do, aligned behind children and families in poverty. And our work has tremendously grown, since those days. And over the last 6 years, it's been incredible work. So last year, we touched over 17,000 children. The dollars and the work that we do and the dollars that we raise touched that many kids in our community in really powerful ways.
And out of those 17,000, and when you say our community, where is the reach? Like where are these 17,000 people?
It is really the greater Wyoming Valley. So picture all of Luzerne County, and we look at the line, Route 80 as a line of demarcation, because south of that is the United Way of Greater Hazelton. Okay. So there's 2 United Ways that are serving the bulk of the county. And so we are most of the county with the exception of Hazelton.
Gotcha. So, I'm sure this year has been a challenging year as it has been for most. How has COVID impacted the organization?
COVID has been a disruptive force for most of us and most of our businesses, but it has really been especially tough on low-income children and families. And what we're finding is that need, has continued to grow. And when the unemployment rate, spiked up very, very quickly in March and April, that affected more families, more kids, affected the education. What's happening in the education world and the disruption there really has a great effect on kids. And some families are going to be able to adjust to that because they have the resources to be able to help their kids stay on track. Low-income families may not have those resources. And so it's been a real issue. When COVID first started, we were helping to facilitate, charitable dollars of companies that wanted to immediately respond to, the need for food insecurity or housing and those kind of things. And we also went back to our donors and we said, look what's happening with kids. They ended school last year on March 13th and never came back to the classroom. And it was really awkward trying to get some virtual learning done and all of that. They basically missed the last quarter of last school year. And as we said, how is this going to affect the future of kids? And one of the things that we put our stake in the ground around at the United Way is that we know that a community, one of the indicators for a healthy community is the community's high school graduation rate. The higher the graduation rate, the healthier, stronger a community, will be. And so every employer that comes to an area wants to know what's the graduation levels in this community. And so if we want to improve our community, and that's been the goal of the United Way since its very existence, we need to work on improving graduation rates. And if we want to improve graduation rates, we need to start really, really young. And one of the key indicators for graduation rates, believe it or not, are reading levels at the third grade. Up until third grade, we're all learning how to read. Fourth grade on, we need to read to learn. And so the national statistic is 23% of kids who aren't reading proficiently at the end of third grade become that class's dropout rate. And it's predictable with great accuracy. And we won't be able to change that constant. What we can do is help more kids become more proficient by third grade. And if we do that, it is 23% of a much smaller number. And we could reduce the dropout rate over the course of time. And if we reduce the dropout rate, it improves the lives of those kids who otherwise would have dropped out. Plus, it's going to strengthen our community. And that's really how we changed our model based on, that work right there.
Yeah. And I mean, how difficult was the process to change that model?
Agencies who we've been funding for decades to do certain things, some of them never believed that we were really going to change. And we said, oh, yes, we are. We need to. We have to. And so it took a 3-year process to tell the agencies, hey, we're going to study to see if there's a better use, a more effective use, a more impactful use of donor dollars. And we're going to study it. And when we learn, as we learn what we study, we will inform you and keep the agencies and the funded partners, informed of the direction that we're going in. And so you said, here's what we've learned. And the data, the facts were speaking for themselves. And said, boy, this really needs our attention or our community is in big trouble down the road. And so we told the agencies, we're going to continue to pursue understanding this. And if you're in this space, chances are we'll be able to continue to fund you. If you're not, we'll give you one more year of funding. And then you have to figure out, is your mission going to change to support the work that we're going to do? Or you'll have to figure out how to live without United Way dollars. And that was a bit of a struggle. And we try to do that as politely, kindly, compassionately as we can. But we were really compelled to move in this direction. And as the dust settled, we really believed that it was the right thing to do.
And, obviously, I'm sure it's been a tough environment for fundraising this year. How is the campaign going?
So you're right. It is a challenge. Fundraising in this environment, just reaching the employees that we used to reach before. Companies have downsized. Many companies are working remotely, so it's harder to, get their attention. And so, we budgeted a 15% decrease in the campaign. And so when you raise $3.5 million every year, a 15% decrease, that's $500,000 down compared to last year.
Was that your goal, $3.5 million?
Yep, that's always been our target. And so now I think we're going to do better than what was budgeted, but we're not where we were, the year before. And so, it's been a challenge, and I'd like to, those folks who are listening and sharing this podcast or, the publicity around it, if you want to support this good work or learn more about it, I would invite those phone calls, that support, because dollars that are being used and dollars that are coming to the campaign are helping kids in very profound ways. When we can help kids learn and read and graduate on time, that's who our that will help our workforce be better prepared in the future. And so this is a long-term investment in our community. And I just want to, ask people to support our work as much as they can.
So what are some of the key initiatives? I know you brought Dolly Parton with you today, and I think she obviously plays a big role in helping raise some funds and educating children at a very young age. What is the significance with Dolly?
We love our relationship with Dolly. That was one of the very first things that we did as we changed the model, because most people don't realize the science of brain development. And this is science. This isn't, most people don't realize 90% of our brain is developed by age 5. So if we want to help kids, again, graduate on time, read, and develop that foundation, reading by 3rd grade, and it really starts at birth. And every day from prenatal to 5 years old, the neurons in our brain are developing at such a rapid pace that, again, 90% of our brain is developed by age 5. The more we could read to a child, the more we could engage a child, the more we could stimulate a child in looking at pictures and imagination and play and interaction with an adult reading to them, it just builds those neurons. And the American Association of Pediatric Medicine, they will say the very best thing you could do to help a child be more ready for school and prepare to learn is to read to that child from birth on. So Dolly Parton was one of 12 kids growing up very poor, rural Tennessee. Her dad did not know how to read, and her father insisted that all of his kids learn how to read. And so Dolly has taken that early life lesson. Now with her fame and fortune, she's created what's called the Dolly Parton Imagination Library. And we could register kids at no cost to those kids or those families. We could register kids from birth to 5 years old. And every month, a brand new book comes to that child's house. And it is powerful. And so since September 2014, we've registered over 5,400 children in the low-income kids in the Imagination Library. Well over 100,000 books have come into our community to help those kids. And when you think, is that really a big deal? If your family has resources, it's not even something you think about. But if your family is struggling to pay the utilities, pay for food, pay for healthcare, keep the car in good repair, keep the rent or the mortgage paid, children's books are not high on the priority list in terms of what we could afford to buy. So many kids are starting school, never been really exposed to books. And it makes a difference. So that was our first partnership, and then our first real initiative. And then we developed some other initiatives around reading, and we have a very cool thing. This year it's a little bit on hiatus because of the impact of COVID in schools, but we've created a program called Reading Buddies, to help kids who are falling behind in reading and bringing volunteers in during the school day, and a wonderful partnership with the Wilkes-Barre School District, to be able to make that happen. And so that's been a cool initiative. We started an initiative 2 years ago called the Nurses Pantry. And we started that program because we learned low-income kids miss an awful lot of school for reasons other than being sick. 2 boys were sent home from school because they had lice. Doesn't mean they were bad or dirty. Lice happens. Well, these 2 boys were living with their grandmother, drugs in the family and that type of stuff. So these boys had a better environment with the grandmother than they did their own mother. These boys, or the grandmother wasn't well herself. Boys were sent home in the middle of the month. The grandmother had to wait until the 3rd of the next month to get her Social Security check before she could buy the $18 bottle of medicated shampoo that these kids needed.
Wow.
And so they lived for days and days and days. And the school district called 10 days later and said, where are these boys? They should be back in school. Well, they weren't, because they weren't even treated yet.
They couldn't.
That's right. And so we learned of that story. We learned of another story where, 2 other boys. The older boy went to school 3 days a week. His younger brother went 2 days. Next week it was reversed, and the younger brother went 3, the older brother went 2. When the school wondered why these boys were always alternating days of school, they immediately came to the conclusion that there had to be a younger sibling at home, and one of the boys were required to stay home and provide childcare for that child. And so they were going to ask the boys and see if there was other resources for the family. That wasn't it at all. There wasn't another child at home. These boys were alternating what days of school they were going to because they were sharing the same pair of shoes.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's sad.
Yeah, you bet. So when we learned of these stories, we said, what can we do as a united way to help? And so we talked to the schools and we developed what taxpayers, shouldn't have to pay for. This is a charitable initiative. We are filling up the schools, the nurse in the nurses' room. We're filling up shelves and pantries and closets with the things that these kids might need every day. The lice kits, the shampoos, the hygiene items, the toothbrushes, the toothpaste, clothing, underwear for the little kids, socks, all of that stuff that these kids need, because not having these things are barriers for these kids to attend school. And if a child is wearing the same shirt every single day and getting bullied, that child doesn't want to come to school. You're not at school, you're not learning. And so it's all of these reasons that we created what's called the Nurses Pantry. And we started as a pilot program in the Wilkes-Barre School District. We knew immediately that it was going to be a huge success and truly needed every single day. And now the Nurses Pantry is in 26 school buildings in 7 school districts throughout the Wyoming Valley.
Wow. Really
cool stuff. And so we're meeting kids where they're at and helping them stay in school, continue to learn. And so that's another initiative. We created an initiative when COVID happened. We made sure that we purchased a summer learning workbook for every kid in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, and mailed those workbooks in a partnership with Highlights Magazine, mailed those workbooks to the children's homes with a note to the parents and said, your child missed the last quarter of the school year. It's going to affect their ability to enter the next school year more prepared to learn for that year. Help your child so they maintain their skills and they're ready to move to the next grade. And we did that in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, because they're such foundational years, getting those children ready and be prepared to learn at third, and read at third grade. So all of these initiatives have a strategy to keep kids healthy, to keep them in school, to keep them learning.
Wow, it's a heck of a mission.
It sure is, and we're proud of it. And our next initiative that we haven't announced yet, very, very cool. We wanted to start it last March, and obviously we couldn't. We were going to start it again in November, and we couldn't. But soon as the school allows us to get started, we will. And it's a program called See to Succeed. And if your listeners remember, every year, every kid in every school district needs to be tested for vision. So last year in the Wilkes-Barre School District, 7,300 kids get tested for vision, and 702 did not pass the screening test for school. No big deal there. 10% of kids need glasses anyway. The fact that 702 kids didn't pass the screening test shouldn't shock anybody. What is alarming is that of the 702 kids that didn't pass the screening, only 16% of those kids got the follow-up exam and the glasses they needed, meaning 84% of kids who needed glasses didn't get them.
Yeah.
And we learned that 69% of those kids who didn't get them don't have vision insurance. And so that's a real issue. So we, through a grant funded by the Moses Taylor Foundation and a partnership with the Wright Center for Community Health, we have purchased all of the equipment that an eye doctor would need, and we are creating a rotating eye clinic from building to building to building in the Wilkes-Barre School District as a pilot program. And we hope it takes off. And if a child has parent consent, we will, get an exam. If the child needs glasses, There will be a large selection of frames that the child could pick from. 2 weeks later, that child is going to have glasses, on their eyes. And that is so powerful in their ability to learn, their ability to participate in life. And for those, listeners who are listening to this, if you are wearing glasses and you don't have them, you know how that affects you. And if you're a young kid and you don't know that you need glasses yet and are struggling to see the blackboard, struggling to read, and all of that, all of it is going to affect your learning. So we are super excited about launching See to Succeed because we know that is going to be a game changer, for the kids' ability to learn.
Really cool. So I want to go back to the Dolly Parton. It was called Imagination Library.
Yep.
Did you ever get the opportunity to meet her?
I did. So she came in a couple of years ago. She did a concert at the arena, and when that concert was announced, her PR people said, "We know that you are, a partners of ours. She is going to be in your community. She would like to meet you." And so we got a couple of tickets, to be able to go to the concert. And we were the last people in line before the concert started. We were the last people in line to go through a meet and greet with her. And she was taking pictures of with everybody. And as soon as we were introduced by her staff, said, "These are the folks from the United Way." She knew immediately that the United Way in this community is our partner for the Imagination Library. Thank you. We love you for doing it. She gave us big hugs. We got in pictures. I had a big smile on my face. My wife was not very happy with why I was smiling in a picture with Dolly Parton. But, she was so kind. And she, if you know anything about her now, she's in her early 70s, as busy and active as ever, trying to help people through her music, through her charity, and she was just really wonderful. So, it was kind of exciting to be able to meet her.
Yeah, that's really incredible. So, you mentioned all these different initiatives. I mean, you guys are doing a lot of stuff. Who was responsible for all this, making all this happen? I mean, I'm sure you probably have a big team of people, behind you.
There's really the work of the United Way. There's 9 of us. And we have some other staff that are funded through a grant through the state for the last 30 years. We've been serving people with HIV/AIDS through housing and other support services, and making sure that those folks get the services that they need. But that's really funded through the state. But the work of the United Way and all of these initiatives that I had mentioned, separate from our HIV work, is really funded through donors. Our board of directors, our volunteers really drive the mission, help us execute on that mission. And we have some staff that, there's 3 or 4 of us that are raising the dollars. There's 3 or 4 of us that are actually 3 of us that are really involved with, developing these initiatives, developing partnerships. One of the lines that I use often, going back to my banking days some 20 years ago, there's an old quip in the banking industry to the famous bank robber Willie Sutton. And what was asked of him when he finally was caught after, a career of robbing banks, a reporter said, "Willie, why do you rob banks?" And you know what his very simple answer was?
What?
"That's where the money is." And it was that simple.
Very simple.
So we developed a whole bunch of partnerships with all of these school districts. Why? Because that's where the kids are. And so we're operating very differently as a United Way. We're really not just a funder, raising money and funding agencies. That was the traditional work for decades. But we're really trying to have an impact on this area. And if we do, our community is going to be better and stronger for it.
So, as your role as president and CEO, like what's a typical day like for you? Another loaded question.
Yeah, I look at my role as supporting the rest of our team, doing this work. And they call on me, if their agenda can't move for whatever reason, if we're struggling with, the campaign, the CEO, gets involved. If we're developing these initiatives, are we going, our community impact folks will say, this is a really cool idea. And one of the values and the power of the United Way is that we're not the first community to deal with these issues. So we could see what other communities and see what success looks like in other communities and bring good ideas and innovation, here to Wyoming Valley. And so when our community impact person, when they say we'd like to do this, they turn to me and say, okay, now you got to figure out how to fund it and how do we execute on it, because it is a good idea. And so, I find myself between, dealing with campaign issues and raising money all year long, the impact issues, making sure that we have the impact that we want to have and you are using those donor dollars wisely. And then the everyday running the organization and all the operational things and dealing with our wonderful board. We have a very big board of 36 members, and I've got to keep them informed, and they need to trust that the work that we're doing and they really, hold that community trust, dear to them, and making sure that dollars are being used wisely. And I'm really, really confident, about that. And if anybody has, stories about the United Way of days, long ago that they were forced to give, or it wasn't being used wisely, or, this happened at a national level, or whatever it was, come spend some time with us here in Wyoming Valley and know and see the passion that we're working with, how effectively the dollars are being used. This is going to be an organization that people are going to be proud to support.
So do you want to maybe name some of the other organizations that you guys have helped?
Oh, we're funded partners with, the CYC, the YMCA, Volunteers of America, Volunteers in Medicine, CEO, and the work that they've done around COVID has just been amazing. Family Service Association, and especially the 211 service that is just, if anybody doesn't know about 211, that was the helpline of this area. And now if you're looking for information, referrals, support services of any sort, and you just dial 211 on your phone, you're going to get a live person. And it's just been a valuable service, especially in a crisis like COVID. Numbers, phone calls have shot up. Where can people get support? So we're funding those and so many of the daycare or childcare programs, Wyoming Valley Children's Association, Children's Service Center, just so much good work that is happening in our community. Head Start, I wish I had a list in front of me.
Yeah, there's so many.
I will forget, somebody, and I don't mean to.
Sure.
But all of these organizations, we are all rowing together to help kids in this community, and it's going to pay off over the course of time.
Good. So, Bill, besides making it on the stacks, what would you say is one of your greatest successes?
Well, that surely was. I'll tell you, if people know me, they know how passionate I am about the community that I'll always call home. And so every time we roll out a new initiative and we get feedback from a teacher, from a principal, from a parent, from a student themselves that, something changed, somebody's life is better, that somebody now is on track to excel. That is the kind of, that's success to me. And I thrive on that.
Yeah. Based on your successes, what advice could you give to somebody, either in a similar role to yours or somebody that's looking to get into a role like yours? What advice can you offer?
In terms of nonprofit work, lead with passion. Now absolutely understand no money, no mission. And you have to understand the business of executing on your mission. And every nonprofit has compliance issues. They have funding issues. They have HR issues. All of that is critically important. But lead with your passion. And if you're no longer passionate about what you're doing, it's time to get out. Or don't get in it if you're not truly passionate about it.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think all of us listening, everyone listening right now can definitely hear hear the passion you have for the community and the work that you do, which is excellent. So speaking of community and being a guy here of the Wyoming Valley, what is your favorite thing about NEPA?
Besides the pizza?
Yeah, besides the pizza. You can tell me what your favorite pizza is, but besides the pizza.
This community is home. It just, God, I should have a canned answer for, what's my favorite. I just love this community. Both my kids had the opportunity to go away to school. They both, chose King's. I'm a Misericordia guy. My wife is a Wilkes grad, and so we've got all the bases covered. But my oldest daughter chose King's. My youngest at the time, when my oldest said she's going to King's, my younger daughter said, "I'm getting out of here." 3 years later, she wouldn't apply to anywhere else but King's because of this was home, and so I love the proximity and the closeness, and you can get to just about anywhere you need to be. We complain about the traffic, and traffic in Wyoming Valley is, if you're at the same traffic light for more than one turn of the traffic light, it's a heavy traffic day. Yeah. But compared to where my sister lives in Atlanta or, my brother in New Jersey,
it's nothing.
Traffic, nothing here. And so this is home. It's convenient. We get to know our neighbors. We know our community. You could easily access community leadership, here in our community. So it's just a great place to live. It's a great place to work. It's a great place to just call home.
And now, what's your favorite pizza?
Well, I grew up on Joe's Grotto. Now, but I will tell you, I think, between, Pizza Perfect.
Another good one.
Yep. Gosh, I'm drawing a blank on Park Ave.
Park Ave, yeah. There's Angelo's, and then do you call it Richie's or Ricky's?
Ricky's.
Do you call it Ricky's? Okay.
Yep. Love
sweet sauce.
Sweet sauce. I love the sweet sauce.
Okay. All right.
That's
all right.
I love that. And then up at Mountaintop, it's three guys or
Kings.
Kings. Just all of them.
Nice. Yeah. Can't go wrong. I don't think there's a bad pizza around here. I don't think I've ever had a bad pizza.
And I still enjoy Nardone's in a box.
Oh, of course.
Or not, it's because that's what we grew up on.
And it's nostalgic.
That's right.
You can't go wrong. Either way. So, besides reading some Cat in the Hat books to the kids in schools, are there any other books maybe that have helped you along the way, inspired you, or any other just resources in general that you've found that have really helped you in your career or in life?
Well, I've got shelves of books and have read.
Oh, so I asked the right question then.
When I got into the nonprofit world, I really wanted to feel the inspiration that other writers and successful people have done. And so it was the business books and the Good to Great and the Jim Collins and all of that stuff, in the early 2000s, that helped me become a better leader. But I want to spend the limited amount of time that I have to read. I want to spend that with some things that are really inspirational. And, 2 years ago, we had at our kickoff a guy by the name of Father Greg Boyle. Father Greg, runs the largest center in Los Angeles, or largest center in the country. It's in Los Angeles for formerly gang members and former individuals who are incarcerated.
Okay.
Called Homeboy Industries, and how he has changed lives, how he's been part of it. He won't take credit for it, but how he has put that program together, and magic happens and lives are different. And he has 2 books that I've read and I've reread because they're just really profound. And when he came and he spoke at our kickoff event, a couple of years ago, he looked at our Live United logo, and he doesn't use the words Live United, but he has an image that he talks about all the time. And he said, picture those people who are at the margins of society, and picture all of us in a big circle where no one is standing on the outside of that circle. And when you think that should include all of us, and that in the scheme of things, no one is more important than someone else. We're all humans. And I find such inspiration in that. And that kind of inspires me that these kids who are growing up in poverty, they could be somebody. Their lives are important. They matter. And if we could help them, their world will be different. Our community is different and stronger for it. And so I read, getting back, I could easily get off the topic.
It's all right. It's all good. It's all good information.
I read that kind of stuff to keep me inspired, to keep me thinking, to keep, me fresh in terms of, what fuels the passion. And so that's the kind of, reading I do.
Yeah. And what was his name again? Say it one more
Father
time.
Greg Boyle.
Father Greg Boyle. And I'm sure people can find out more information on him probably online as well. But I'll also, besides him and some of the other initiatives and things that you mentioned that the United Way does, I will also post some links on my website, which is onthestacks.com. So if anyone's listening right now and, instead of having anyone do the work of doing all these Google searches, I will do all the work for you. If you just go to my website, onthestacks.com, and you click on Bill's photo, it'll come up to a webpage with Bill's episode. And there'll be a bullet point list of a lot of the things that we talked about today. So again, if anyone, wants to check that stuff out, we can, I'll definitely post all links to those. So the calendar year is almost coming to an end, Bill. I understand next year is a big, important year for the United Way.
It sure is.
Tell me about it.
It will be our 100th anniversary next year, and we're really excited about it. This year is a challenge. There's no question. This year is a real challenge. Next year, we're planning and moving into our 100th anniversary, for next year. And we want to celebrate those 100 years and all of the work that people have done over the course of time to be able to serve, this community. We were started in 1921, and there was 3 reasons that fundraising started to happen in 1921. Any guess on what those 3 things might have been?
Well, I know one of them was probably a war.
Okay, so veterans returning from war.
Veterans, yep. Okay. I don't know, probably the Great Depression.
No,
coming up.
Depression was
a little bit after. I don't know.
We did not have the dike system that we have now, so we were prone to flooding and natural disasters. So to provide relief for those people who were impacted by natural disasters, and then diphtheria. As it was very common then. And so, it was, we were raising money to help those people with diphtheria. So it evolved over the course of time. We want to celebrate, that history and all of the stuff that has happened over 100 years to get us where we are. And then we want to be able to tell our story and lay out our vision and help, hopefully people understand what our vision is for the future, and not just for the organization, because it's really not about the United Way. It's not about the organization. It's about the Wyoming Valley. It's about our community. It's about the people who live here and what we're going to be doing, in the foreseeable future. And so we're going to celebrate that. We're going to, try to fundraise. Hopefully COVID will allow us to celebrate in person. All of that to be determined, but we're hopeful, and we'll see what happens there. But, ask people to understand our mission, support our mission, and know that gifts to the United Way are going to make a big impact in the lives of people and the future of our community. So we're looking forward to the centennial celebration to be able to talk about all of that.
Yeah. So what's the vision? What's the vision for the future look like?
But, it will continue for some time. We know that people do not get into poverty overnight, and they're not going to get out in a funding cycle or 2 or a decade. So when we start this work and we're really focused on birth through 5 years old and up to age 9 and doing that, the bulk of our work around that age, we know that it's going to take a couple of decades to measure
the change
and success. And we have to stay committed to this, over the long term. I didn't mention this, but when we talk about the importance of third grade reading levels, we're looking at that to measure graduation rates, community wellness, community health. There are some states who are looking at the third grade reading levels to determine how many prison beds are going to be needed in the future.
Wow.
So which way do we want our children of this community and our community to go? Reading and graduating on time and better starts in life and opportunity, or more prison beds.
Yeah.
And that's really, this is why we're doing this work. And so that's how important all of that is. So it's going to take a while to do that. And we want to use the 100th anniversary so people really get it. There's a couple times in this conversation, you said, wow, things that you might not have known.
Definitely.
And so I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to jump on this podcast, to be able to share that message or these messages so that people, will say this work is really important, to be able to educate the community on what we're doing, because that education and awareness will lead to support. And when that leads to support, we're going to be able to help more kids.
And repeat that that one statistic back again about the developmental of the brain. Was it 90%? 90%? Say that one more time, because that's really important, I think.
90% of our brain is developed by age 5. So if we miss those years and those opportunities to develop those neurons the way that they could be developed, it's hard to get back. There have been studies of in the brain of serial killers and repeat offenders and that type of stuff versus individuals with similar backgrounds that were able to get early development and early learning. And the science will show you, if brains develop, there are less issues. There are so many people in prisons right now that can't read, that didn't graduate from high school. And we could change that and change lives if we get this right and make the right investments into the youth of our community, who have these needs.
Yeah, definitely.
So, it's all, really based on science. It's based on good work. It's based on,
consistency,
proven things that have been proven through in other parts of the country. I've been fond of saying that, if the world's going to come to an end, you want to make sure that you're living here in Wyoming Valley, because things happen here years after they happen everywhere else. And, we're able to take advantage of that and see what other communities are doing and bringing those good ideas that are working, bring that innovation here to Wyoming Valley and make a difference in the lives of kids.
Definitely. And if the world is ending, and if I'm definitely going down with an Angelo's Sweet Sauce Pizza.
There you go,
this is the place I want to be.
That's right. Jerry's Pizza too.
Yeah.
With sweet sauce.
Yeah. Yeah.
God,
all good. Can't go wrong with any of them.
Sabatini's.
Oh my God, another classic.
That's right.
So what was your interest of being on the podcast? I'm just curious. A lot of people that are listening and or people that maybe don't listen. I think some people don't know how to be on the podcast, and I think some people are afraid to ask, and then others aren't.
Well, you know what? At heart, I'm a promoter. And I have to promote the good work that we're doing to be able to generate the resources that this good work requires. And so I do that with much passion and pride in the work that we're doing. And I could look at any donor, any individual and say, if you support us, we know that your dollars will be used well, and your dollars will be used, to help lives. So to be able to use any format or any venue, any podcast to be able to share our message with the thousands of listeners that you might have. When somebody hears this message, they might think a little bit differently about the United Way, or maybe there will be some people that will listen to this message and say, these kids should sign up for the Imagination Library. And you know what? There's value in that as well. It's not just about, it's serving people. Fundraising is one thing. Serving people, is equally as important. And so to be able to keep getting our message out as often as we can in as many venues as there are. Years ago, it was easy to, when you're, limited messages were television and newspaper and radio. That was it. Now the world is different, and there's lots of ways, and people are tuning into different ways to receive information. We've got to figure out how to take advantage of all of those ways to be able to, share the good work that we're doing.
Yeah. So is this your first podcast?
This is actually my second.
Okay. But this is your favorite though, right?
For sure.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And the other one was by phone, some months ago during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
I was called and taped over the phone, but I'm enjoying this, and just the idea that I get to sit on the stacks now, that has been the highlight of a tough year. I got to sit on the stacks. I can't wait for those pictures.
Yeah, it became a real thing. So it was really cool. It was really fun. It was great to learn more, about you personally and your passion for the community and the United Way and all the great things that you guys do. So, how can our listeners learn more about the United Way?
Sure. If anyone wants to go to our website, www.unitedwaywb.org. Please look around. My phone number is there. My email is there. I'm absolutely easy to find. Call me so you can learn more. If you want to help and give, we would be grateful for that. A really easy way to give is through our, we have a new text to give platform. Text support to this number, 26989. That's 26989. If you text the word support to that number, you could support the United Way as well. So lots of things that listeners can do to help move this mission forward. And if people had thoughts and ideas and wanted to contact me and talk to me about it, I'd welcome that.
Awesome. And like I said, I will also post the links, and I'll post the support text. I'll share those. I'll share that information and all that on my website, which is onthestacks.com. You'll just easily click on the awesome photos of Bill and I, and it'll take you to all the information, everything that we talked about today. And before we end, Bill, one more time, why is the United Way of Wyoming Valley so important to our community?
The United Way, I've said this before, we are just a force for good. We are impactful. We are changing lives. We are changing the community. The dollars, it isn't just dollars and where do they go. We are so accountable. I should have mentioned that we have the highest rating by Charity Navigator. Charity Navigator is one of what we would call a nonprofit watchdog on, how nonprofits are doing and are meeting certain standards to both financial standards and compliance and quality standards. We have our United Way has the highest rating by Charity Navigator. We know that we're efficient, we're effective, and the work that we're doing is impacting children. It's impacting lives. It will impact the future. And it's not that United Way of decades ago that all we were doing is raising money and giving it out. We are driving an agenda to make our community better and stronger. And so it's truly important work. There's lots of good organizations doing lots of good things. I know we're among the oldest and most impactful.
Yeah, definitely. And, kudos to you for all the amazing work that you do. And, obviously you're going to have a huge impact on the community with all these great initiatives. So on the Stacks podcast, Bill Jones, United Way of Wyoming Valley, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, my friend.
If you'd like to learn more about the On the Stacks podcast, be sure to search the hashtag On the Stacks on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review. We'll catch you next time on The Stacks.